Shabbat Shalom. What a morning. I had the privilege of spending some time this week in our Bethel Preschool. I joined the 3-year-olds in their movement class, which is exactly as adorable as you imagined it. It's completely adorable. They run and jump across tiny foam blocks in order to practice balance. They run this obstacle course that is so exciting and beautiful. So it's foam blocks to practice balance. Then there are the tiniest hurdles you've ever seen. They're about 6 inches off the ground, so they either jump or step over these little hurdles, which helps with their coordination. They also go fishing. They play this game where they have these little plastic fishing rods that have magnets on the bottom of the line. If you're a fisherman and I get all the words wrong, you'll just tell me afterwards. At the bottom of the fishing line, there's a magnet, and then the plastic fish are scattered across the ground, and they have to carefully hold the rod and drop it at just the right moment to catch the fish, which have little metal beads on them. That was a lot. This kind of exercise, so the fishing rod with the magnets, helps with fine motor coordination. And so they're playing a game and they're also learning. That's the goal. And it's not as easy as you might think. I tried one. Especially if you're 3 years old, it's not so easy to catch the fish. So this week during fishing, I noticed that one student became frustrated because it was hard to catch the fish with the little rod. And so I watched her, I could see her thinking and analyzing what to do. She sort of stopped, looked at the problem, and then she reached down to the bottom of the string, the line, and she just reached down and connected it to one of the fish. Brilliant, I mean, that's a brilliant solution, right? And then she stood up and she lifted up her fishing rod and she said, I got it, which is true, she did get it. And it was so adorable and we all laughed and congratulated her. And I also thought to myself, because I think about things a lot, did she really get it? Did she really get it the way she managed the problem? So on the one hand, what a brilliant problem solver. I am so impressed with her. But you'll recall that the goal of the whole obstacle course and the goal of this exercise in particular was to work on fine motor coordination. So while it took confidence to outsmart the game, she missed this other important learning goal, right? So no judgment about this particular child. She's 3. But her ingenuity led me to think about how we all approach learning. So first, we have to have a certain amount of humility. We have to trust a teacher's guidance. We have to participate. We have to go along for the ride to some extent. And we have to open ourselves up to where that might lead. And we might not know that we're learning fine motor coordination when we're going fishing, but we do it anyway. And second, we have to have confidence. We have to think creatively, sometimes meaning we have to reject the premise of the question because that will lead us to find new answers. That's important creativity too. So she was learning when she decided to bend down and connect the fish. So this very tension between humility on the one hand and confidence on the other is found in this week's Parsha Ki Tisa, which we just read. After the Israelites, you knew that was going to be the connection, right? That there was going to be something in the Parsha. So there is. After the Israelites build the golden calf, after Moses destroys the first set of tablets, as he is coming down from Mount Sinai with the second set of tablets, we read a moving description of the scene. Moses was not aware that the skin of his face was radiant. He had spoken with God. Aaron and all the Israelites were afraid to come near him. He is radiant, and they are afraid. The Hebrew word, which we translate as afraid, is a strong one, vayiru. The root meaning of Yud Resh Aleph, meaning fear and reverence and respect and awe. So more than just fear. Moses, who is known as very humble, more than any other person on the face of the earth, we read a little later in the Torah. The one who is so very humble in this moment is not able, or he doesn't even try, to hide the awe-inspiring experience he has just had. It radiates from his face. Maybe he can't even turn it off. It is so strong. He's glowing. The people are surprised and in awe of this overwhelming appearance of Moses. They realize they are in the presence of a human being who has just spoken directly with God. Moses, who is suddenly and uncharacteristically, as we just said, uncharacteristically shining as brightly as can be, and the people, these are the people, remember, who had the chutzpah, and that's being generous to say they just had the chutzpah. They had the chutzpah to build an idol, the golden calf. These are the same people who are showing, in this moment, great humility. They are standing back. They are hesitating. They are afraid to approach. They don't assume they are worthy of God's presence, let alone getting to hear what God said to Moses on Mount Sinai. Moses then calls them to come near, and they do, even though they are afraid. So far, the humble one is glowing, and the arrogant or chutzpahdik or making mistake ones are humbled. Moses speaks to the people, but we still sense that he is struggling with the tension between his natural trait of humility and the confidence that he needs to lead. When he finishes speaking, he covers himself with a veil. We learn from this dance between Moses and the people that the most effective way of connecting, the most effective way of teaching and learning in all the ways that we connect happens when we can show both humility and confidence. When we approach with respect, when we overcome our fear, and when we step up to learn. The Bible scholar Dr. Walter Hertzberg considers the interior world of the leader of Moses, his experience, his interior emotional experience. And he points to a rabbinic work of 16th century Poland, the Kli Yakar, which teaches that Moses, in his great humility, was embarrassed when people gaped at the radiance of his face. But whenever he received instruction from God, he put the veil on, but whenever he received instruction from God, he was required to remove the veil. And this was in keeping with our sages' principle in Pirkei Avot, the ethical teachings of our ancestors, the teaching that one who is bashful cannot learn. In other words, Moses needs to remove his veil in order to talk to God. He can't be infinitely humble. He can't physically cover himself. Dr. Hertzberg calls this a values clarification exercise that challenges us to consider situations in our lives where modesty may not be appropriate. For example, when studying Torah, we will not be able to make sufficient progress in our studies if we are not willing to be assertive and challenging at times, even at the risk of seeming less than reverential. Moses learns to overcome his reticence and to stand in the shining glow of his own face. He has to do this long enough to connect with God and then to connect God with the people through his words, through his teaching. What I learned from the inventive and brave 3-year-old who went fishing on her own terms in our preschool, and what I learned from the Torah's story of how Moses and the Israelites received the second set of tablets, is that our best learning must come from a balance of humility and confidence. And so I wish that for all of us in our learning and connecting. Shabbat Shalom.